Biden signed this Cops Counseling Act, and it was an act that basically focused on providing counseling to cops for traumatic experiences. This is obviously also used from the from January 6th, because remember when the squad voted present on giving money to cops, and some of them voted yes, it was going to give money to all sectors of the police, not the Capitol Police, but also like certain agencies as well. So this is not surprising, but I just kind of wanted to read it and wanted to kind of go over exactly what it is, which I guess you'll have to do.
The Cops Counseling Act, signed by President Joe Biden on Thursday, aims to help law enforcement officers recover from the invisible wounds of the job, fam. The invisible wounds. Now, is this not pandering to all the... He's trying to pander to the right. The conservative base that they do have, the people who are anti-Trumpers and whatnot, that are still conservative, that are pro-police, he's trying to pander to them. And it's kind of weird because before the election, it was all cops are bastards. Now it's like, let's help them with their drama.
He's also pandering not just to them, he's pandering to the people who thought January 6th was an insurrection, and those type of, neoliberals that want, justice for what happened on that day. So that's, I think, more than the right. He's pandering to those people because he knows like that the Democrats are in a very precarious position. He knows his poll numbers of popularity have dropped. He knows Kamala Harris's are even worse. So they know that something's up. So let's go ahead and play the video.
Every day, our nation's police officers answer the call and confront scenes that can take a toll on them as well and leave them traumatized. It's not fundamentally different than folks in the battlefield. Awful lot of people come home without any physical wounds, but come home with post-traumatic stress and responding to terrible incidences. Well, the same happens for our law enforcement officers. Arriving at homicide scenes, handling child abuse cases, as they confront these situations, we need to help them recover from the invisible wounds that their work can inflict. These wounds are no different from wounds that I said our military encounters on the battlefield. According to one study, law enforcement officers are 54% more likely to die by suicide than the average American because they're under such enormous pressure and they see things none of us ever see. The vast majority of law enforcement officers tell us that peer support programs are the most helpful mental health resource there is. And that makes sense. If you hold just a second, it makes you, when you think about it, law enforcement as well as the military, all taught to stand your own. Don't ask for anything. You can do it. Just take care of it yourself. And it's an enormous burden we put on people.
Okay. So, is this a joke? I mean, because this is like funny over here for a second. Let's just think about this for a second as we see this, the Cops Counseling Act. Okay. Joe Biden just mentioned, first of all, he drew the parallel from the military, what the military personnel are feeling, what they're going through, and that we have to help them. Well, the safest way to keep them out of harm's way, the best way, is not to intervene with these countries and these governments and put them in these awful positions where we're looked upon as the occupying forces. Of course, they're going to be traumatized when people are trying to kill them and they see their friends hit an IED on the road and are have their legs blown up or never make it back. So, of course, these people are experiencing that. And Joe Biden has been one of the biggest proponents as far as military intervention, whether it be Iraq, whether it be Ukraine and Russia, whether it be all the NATO wars. Joe Biden has been the number one pusher of these wars. For him to sit there and say, well, these are the same experienced police officers are facing as the military who are dealing with terror threats, which is, again, trying to draw that line to January 6th. We got to combat terror. January 6th is domestic terrorists trying to throw an insurrection against our government. Here is the parallel. For him to say that is almost fucking laughable. Joe Biden, who puts so many troops in harm's way. Remember there were no WMDs in Iraq? Well, Joe Biden was the man in the Senate for almost an hour on the floor, fam, pushing for that intervention when millions of people were died or displaced. Soldiers come home every day. 22 of them kill themselves every fucking day. And Joe Biden was the architect of these wars.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, It's just, I mean, it's not surprising if you've been paying attention to who Joe Biden is. He's literally always been pro cop, pro segregationist, pro everything on the right. He is like, if you look at his voting record, he votes like a right winger. He's not. Yeah. He's not this sort of FDR candidate. We all know this. All of you who watch us know this, that he's not, out to be. It's not surprising at all. But it is worth throwing it in the faces of a lot of people who said that they want to vote out fascism by pointing this out, but especially the people who think that, Republicans are the only purveyors of white supremacy, when the reality is it's two wings of the same bird. And Democrats are right there with them. They just gaslight, they decorate their words to make it seem like they're not. So I looked up the legislation, and if you go to the congress.gov, you'll be able to find it. It passed the House, in the Senate, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it now. And this was introduced by a Democrat from Nevada. So that's interesting. Just overall, it passed the House on October 27th of this year. It sets forth requirements related to peer support counseling programs. A peer support counseling programs is defined by them as a program provided by a law enforcement agency that provides counseling services from a peer support specialist to a law enforcement officer of the agency. Among other things, the bill does the following: generally prohibits the disclosure of the contents of peer support communication and requires the Department of Justice to develop best practices and professional standards for peer support counseling programs. So right off the bat, anything they discuss in this peer counseling group is not going to be disclosed. So that over there gives them an extra layer of protection. They already have protection from the unions. So anything, let's say, that they discuss within that doesn't have to be disclosed. So we don't even have healthcare for people. They refuse to give people healthcare. They refuse to give anybody anything during this pandemic. And people have psychologically been damaged from the isolation, from, health-wise as well, from the stress of what the pandemic has induced economically and obviously mentally. And people don't have the luxury of getting healthcare. But remember, the squad voted president, and they have the luxury of getting healthcare and psychological counseling. So do cops now, especially right now in this time where you have the whole situation with Kyle Rittenhouse, and you have this case with Ahmaud Arbery, and you have all this going on, and then Joe Biden comes out and signs this into law. It is a slap in the face in a lot of people, just showing you that this is like the people versus the state. Like at this point, like we don't count. You don't count. It's the people, those who protect the state, because the police technically would be working class, but they're protecting the interest of those in power, which is why it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to attack the national security state, if you're going to attack the state agencies, the CIA and all of that, why do you support cops blindly when they're going to protect those assets of the rich and powerful? They're not protecting yours.
And I always think that, fam, this is argued from the wrong fucking side once again. Excuse my French for cursing. But once again, why are we like, okay, the best way, if you do want to protect cops' mental health, well, what leads to a lot of crime? Homelessness, poverty, whatnot. How many times do police officers have to deal with people with mental health issues, right? Because they don't have the mental health facilities to go to. They don't have the health care to help them with their mental health. So if you really wanted to protect police interests out there, you would strengthen Medicare for all, make sure that everybody who has a mental problem can seek and get mental health, and you would help the working class get more money. So there's less homeless people on the street and there's less crime. It's like that whole thing was like, oh my God, they're getting blown up in Iraq and Afghanistan with these IEDs. What are we going to do to stop it? How about we stop sending them there, and therefore they won't get blown up? Attack it from the source, not the Band-Aid solution. And that's something that these politicians always do. They present the Band-Aid solutions. What are we going to do at the border, fam, when they come here? Well, how about we stop invading their countries and changing their governments so we don't turn the country into a hellhole so people have to come here in the first place? We never think like that. The best thing to help the pro-police people out there that want to help the police, take care of the mentally ill out there. There's too many people with mental illnesses, out homelessness on the streets and are running around, and help the working class. Make sure there's less poverty so there'll be less crime, so less cops will get killed. If that's what you want, there you go. Fix it from the source. Stop with the Band-Aid solutions. Here you go, fam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's possible at this point. I mean, I think it's systemic. I mean, I think this whole thing it's just not going to happen because it's systemic, and the police are there to protect a certain class, and so that's what they're going to do, and that's what they're trained to do. It would be nice to see some of them turn on the people in power, which you kind of are seeing a little bit of it, but it needs to happen in mass. Same with the military, in order for us to be, have some sort of revolt, so to speak. And I just wanted to show the literature, right? What it looks like. You guys can see it on the screen. It's basically, it's the same thing that I just read. And they just lay it out, what it means and what it doesn't mean. They're defining the terms for you. So there it is. It's the act. And it's just really specifically talking about, peer support and psychological support and what it means and what it doesn't mean, and a code of ethics and et cetera. So I really wanted to get to who voted for this, right? So if we're looking at the voting aspect, it had a roll call 337, the final votes for 215 yeses from Democrats, only 3 noes from Democrats, 209 yeses from Republicans, no noes, and 3, I think, that were either independent or were no's, 3 noes in total, actually. Yeah, no, 3 no votes total. And all the no votes were Democratic, and there was 3 Republican no votes and 1 Democratic vote. So you had more no votes from the right than you had from the left, which is kind of crazy. No, the nays were Democrats. Yeah. So there was. Yeah. Okay. So there was 3 Democratic no votes, as I said in the beginning, and 1 that didn't vote, apparently. Okay. So among those people that didn't vote were or that voted nay, like I said, were Cori Bush, AOC, Rashida Tlaib. But among those that voted yes on it, of the progressives, were Ro Khanna. There was also Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar, Maureen Newman. Who else? Mark Pocan. Let's see. I'm just going down the list here. There's a few others. Oh, of course, Wasserman Schultz. Of course, that's not surprising. She's not a progressive, but I said Jayapal as well. Yeah, so Presley right here, Ayanna Presley, other squad member. So notice, when the squad does vote against any legislation like this, it's overwhelming, right? It's going to pass. So notice, once again, they voted no, but it's going to pass. Yeah, Jamal Bauman. So, I just wanted to show you guys the nays.
That's the...
And what?
The not voting, who didn't show up at all, was Ted Lieu. That's an interesting one because Ted Lieu lives in somewhat of a nice area in California, whatnot. So he'll have some people in his district that will be like, you better vote nay. And there's a lot of people in his district like, you better vote yay to protect my property. So he's in that area where he just abstained completely. So I wonder what Ted Lieu has to say about this whole situation if somebody were to press him or ask him a question. That was an interesting no vote for me. Not voting. Didn't vote at all. Abstain courteously.
Okay, so my whole point is in showing this whole thing is that this administration is, giving cops psychological counseling, Johnny the tweet, and they're using the January 6th PSYOP as an excuse. And this all happened before they gave you healthcare, before they gave any of you healthcare, any of us healthcare, before they, did anything to help people during this COVID-19 outbreak. And the reality is Biden is to the right of Trump at this point. He's supporting more people. He is passing pro-cop legislation all around. He literally agreed with the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, which, you should separate that from what actually happened. But he is going out there to get a certain type of voter, and so he's pretty much outrighting all the reasons why people voted for Trump. People voted for Trump for immigrants. They said, oh, we have to vote out fascism. We have to vote out white supremacy. Joe Biden has pretty much done everything. And then in terms of foreign policy, he has been absolutely disastrous with what he's trying to do to Nicaragua, with what they're alleging are fraudulent elections when we were on the ground just covering that they're not. They were fair and free elections. So all the sanctioning, all of the things, all the bombing in the Middle East, what happened, all of that is pretty right wing. So if you're going to talk about things in terms of left wing and right wing, you can no longer blame Trump for any of this. This is the Democratic Joe Biden administration acting fascistically. And not to mention, of course, I haven't even mentioned the COVID narrative and the fascistic authoritarian vaccine mandates that they are pushing on people, that, you know, countries like in Nicaragua, where they didn't have any lockdowns, have such a low COVID rate. And so you have all these things coming to fruition. Of course, the economic fall, and he has not at all followed through on any of his campaign promises, like the expansion of Medicare, like some student debt relief, two-year community college tuition, all of that, and the Build Back Better, which is a Build Back fail act with a bunch of money going to the top 1%. So I mean, this is as bad as it gets with the Joe Biden administration.
I mean, whether you agree with the legislation or not, he surely didn't campaign on this legislation right over here. This is a complete 180. And me personally, I hate the term essential. We heard on that crosstalk show the other day, is like, it was very interesting when they told people to go home, lock themselves in, and have food delivered to them, rather than telling people to go out and deliver food. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do anything to help people within the economy. They told them to stay at home, shut things down, and when it opens it back up, all these small businesses are closed. Nothing's done for them. Certain people were essential, certain people were not. I mean, I believe plumbers are just as essential as police officers. I'm sorry. It's just necessary. I'm not saying that police aren't important, but there are other jobs. You need water. You need sanitation. This is important stuff, right? I believe that. I believe that everybody's job is essential out there. So I don't like the fact that they're just sitting there and saying one thing and elevating this one business, this one occupation over others. I don't like it at all. And who were they were saying supermarket workers were the essential workers. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, everybody's essential. So it really, to me, is just a bunch of malarkey, this whole legislation, and it is pandering. When are we going to get health care? When are we going to get our due? When are we going to get a working economy? When are we going to stop our foreign policy? Why don't you start with the things that are going to help everybody? But you don't. And that's why you were always a fugazi. You haven't canceled student debt. People are still strapped down with that college debt. What's going on? When do we, the people, get what's coming to us? That's all I want to know. I also have a TikTok fam up of Joe's mental state. I don't know if you've seen this one, but this is good. This is all Joe Biden in the last couple months.
President's a Democrat, the media suddenly lose interest in presidential gaffes. All of the clips you're about to see are from the last 2 months. None of them were discussed or covered on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, or MSNBC after they happened. First, we've got Biden confusing World War II heroes, the Tuskegee Airmen, with victims of a decades-long human syphilis experiment.
There's a reason why it's been harder to get African Americans initially to get vaccinated, because they used to being experimented on, the Tuskegee Airmen and others.
At the G7 summit, Biden tried to talk about U.S.-Russia cooperation in Syria, but it came out sounding like this.
We can work together with Russia. For example, in Libya, we can save the lives of people in Libya.
Next up is whatever this is.
The question is whether or not we should be in a position where you why can't the experts say we know that this virus is in fact it's going to be. Or excuse me, we know why all the drugs approved are not temporarily approved, but permanently approved. Yeah.
Then there's this awful moment from a commencement address.
I love those barrettes in her hair, man. I tell you what, and look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady in her legs caught.
That poor sign language interpreter. And here he is just flat out making stuff up.
Anyway.
And if we don't
drive an 18-wheeler, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish
That's
I
awesome.
got to.
Do any of these snippets have massive political implications? No, obviously not, and that's not the point. The point is the same media who spent days talking about this tweet now completely ignore stuff like this.
Are there people in the Republican Party who think we're sucking the blood out of kids?
I'm not sure.
The story here isn't the bumbling old guy. It's about the president's a Democrat, the media suddenly lose interest in presidential gaffes. All of the clips you're about to see are from the last 2 months.
Bam. We have a sharp president. Your thoughts?
I mean,
He's razor sharp.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know if it's edited or not. I haven't taken a look at the footage myself because sometimes a lot of the videos are edited to make him look worse. I don't know. I'm not, I'm not going to opine on that because I don't know if the video is edited or not, but I've seen many Biden gaffes already, so I don't put it past him. I just, I kind of want to, I don't know. His policy is already bad enough. I don't know if I need to make fun of him more on all the other shit.
The double standard we've seen between the media would go crazy when he used Kvetki or whatever it was, that stupid terminology as opposed to this and whatnot. The truth is we shouldn't have either one of these donkeys as our president. We should have an actual real representation from the people, and we don't. And these are the choices that we're forced to deal with. That's either this here or that there, throw up or crap. And I'm sick and tired of it and stuff like that. That's why I'm so keen on wanting to point out elections, try to fix elections, because even if we do get to a point where elections matter, this is just ridiculous, the choices that they're giving us. I can't believe that the American people are still really taking this in stride and saying, okay, yeah, I guess people did want Biden. No, nobody wanted these idiots. Nobody wanted either one of these idiots.